Day 14, we're going biking today.
There was a cat in the window across from our hostel.
After breakfast, we headed to the bike shop to pick them up for the day.
Give us your best stop sign impression. I liked it. Oh, get into it. Get into it.
Our plan was to enjoy a scenic route along the Elbow River and kind of just see the city from that point of view and just enjoy it. Biking is a really big part of German life, and so to be able to experience that part of the culture was really cool. I was really nervous about the bike ride due to the trauma I had in Leipzig. But I ended up having a really great time on a tandem bike.
Sydney, are you ready and excited for the bike ride today?
You may not like it.
We took the bikes along the water, through the city, and through this nice wilderness.
We then stopped at a cookie factory.
How was the bikes?
Good for me. I don't know. We had a little incident on the root of a tree that created a bump, and unnamed person hit the bump very hard and went into the ditch, and then couldn't get out of the ditch. So their bike went like that, and they fell on their knee. It was not me.
I think the different struggles we had on the bikes throughout the trip kind of maybe highlight how Americans are not so used to using bikes as like an active part of transportation, and that's really true in Germany. And I think part of that too kind of goes back mostly to the safety component of it. I know I get nervous around bikers in Colombia, and anytime I'm in Colombia just walking I get nervous I'm gonna get hit, so I can't really imagine how scary it would be on a bike. I tried roller skating around Colombia, but that didn't work. So I think it kind of would be useful to have a bike because it's not super walkable in the way that sometimes, you can walk 40 minutes to go to the grocery store, but it's not necessarily ideal and it can be really time consuming, and a bike would be a good alternative. But because we don't have spaces for bike or bike lanes, even on a lot of roads, it can be difficult. And we do have like bike paths, but they're not always accessible like this one was. So you just kind of had to go out of the city like in a bike lane and then go on the trail, and those aren't really a thing, at least where I live. So it was interesting to see how there was different between Colombia, which is a city that I can walk in technically, and Wittenberg, which is a walkable city in a different sense.
So now we're having cookies. Did you get any cookies? Do you want to try some? They're delicious. Okay, gummy review.
What the hell? I felt like...
Hear me out. I just bought these. I don't know how much money I spent on it, but I'm probably gonna leave them at the table when I'm not eating. Actually, I will do that. Don't tell anybody.
Sydney, thoughts? Not the move. These though? Those are the move.
After the bike ride, we had some free time to walk around Wittenberg, so we went to the donor place, messed around on these little things, and we also went to see some of the stores in which Cecilia fell asleep in the pillow aisle. Not really sure how that happened, but it was interesting to see that the city wasn't actually that big, but it was really condensed, so you can kind of see all the different housing options, and so people were really living within the same places they shopped.
I grew up in a more rural suburban area in which places like food and shopping centers were really separate from like the neighborhoods where all the houses were, and they were all like separate houses. I think it's kind of like in the villages, even all the houses were still closer together, and there were still like things like a pharmacy and like a restaurant within the city, or in the village, I mean. So even like in more rural spaces, there were still those resources, and I think it is in some ways comparable, in some ways it's not, since Wittenberg is a city, and cities, in the US are a little bit more like that. But even like a city that's kind of smaller sized, I appreciate, how they're living so close to all these things. I know, like you said, Dr. Duke, when you were living in Wittenberg, you were like right across from the ice cream shop, which first of all I think would be a dangerous thing because it's so cheap for ice cream, and it was really good. But kind of just the accessibility of those resources to people is really great, and especially like for young people, like, as a young person who couldn't drive, especially since the age is older there, just being able to like go downstairs and like go to shop or something and run and grab something, even though the stores aren't open as often as they are in the US. So I think there's kind of trade-offs between those things. I am taking a Geography of American Cities class in the fall, so I am kind of excited to learn more about that. and how those things are different throughout the US. We then went to dinner at an Italian restaurant, which also I swear there's more Italian restaurants than German restaurants in Germany. I had a ton of margarita pizzas.
The margarita pizza, and it was very good. Your thoughts?
I had pizza. The end.
This, yum.
Sydney?
I had spaghetti. It was mid.
Certified.
I had a mezze plate. There was a lot going on.
I had a veggie pizza and it was also mid. My hair is not buzzing. We then had some trouble securing the bill, which leads me to politeness in Germany. Now, the thing is I feel like it could be easy to get like salty about it, because in America, especially in the South and Midwest, the two places in America in which I have lived, it is very much like a I'm sorry culture. Like, you're bumping into people, you're saying sorry, like, you know, like everything's like sorry. Not really the case in Germany. Like, they're only really saying sorry when it's like really warranted, and they're just more kind of like we were talking about how they're more direct. I think that's in a lot of ways like a refreshing difference. And I mean, this is something that we've talked about a lot when I was in high school. We did an editorials assignment, and one girl did hers on saying sorry, and how we say it for like when we don't really mean it, and like two, and it's like not really necessary, and how especially women do this, and that's something that we talked about in like my linguistic courses as well, is like women in language and how they use it differently than men, and so I think it's kind of food for thought, if you will, to think about politeness and what's considered necessary in different cultures. And as an anthropologist, I think it's an interesting topic. We found ourselves back at Independence.
This is my drink. It's called the apple strudel. Sarah got her tequila sunrise.
The bar was filled mostly with probably late 20s, 30s, I would guess. Our tour guide was there once again, and he did buy us a shot. What do you shot review?
Delicious. I'd do it again. 10 out of 10. Jägermeister all the way.
I took a anthropology class called Understanding Other Cultures when I was a sophomore. It's one of the courses that's required for every anthropology major to take, and also a lot of other people take it, like public health majors, which I think is interesting as far as how we perceive the world and kind of thinking about that in a different way. But one of the topics that we discussed was drinking and within cultures, and I think drinking culture in America is very different for young people than in Germany, because I think it's seen as a lot more taboo in mainstream American culture than in German culture. It was really interesting. At the Independent, there was a group of gentlemen who were like playing like Catan, I think it was, like in the bar, which I thought was kind of fun. But I feel like drinking, they were doing it more as like a social activity, as like a supplement. And I feel like a lot of times in America for young people, drinking is the activity. And of course this could be different based on the different age demographics, and Wittenberg is more like a town more than like a city, so it's probably like different than like the Bergheim in Berlin. But I did think, drinking in Berlin is kind of, they were talking about how beer, like in the olden days, like everybody was drinking it, but it was like super distilled. But like Germany's like iconic for its beer. And so yeah, I just thought that was cool to kind of look into and experience. Also, I taught the bartender how to make a dirty Shirley, which was really exciting for me personally.
It's getting ominous.
Our hostel was also very much giving haunted history.
So yeah, I think the main takeaway from this was kind of more from my anthropology background than my sustainability today, which has been really interesting. I love reading ethnographies by anthropologists, and so it was kind of cool to catalog my own ethnography in the vlog. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that I would be interested in doing in the future. And so it's, really to experience a culture, being able to just have time to kind of hang out in it, I think is really the most valuable thing. Because, doing all the tourist stuff is super valuable to learn the history and the facts about a place, but to really be able to have time to just like sit and experience it is really beautiful, really wonderful, and a really powerful experience. And one of my favorite things about learning about anthropology is being able to read about other people doing that, and so it's really a wonderful thing to kind of get out in the world and be able to do it yourself. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I honestly think a lot more anthropologists should come on this trip, or would really benefit from this trip too, And like staying with the host family is a really cool experience, and one of the best ethnographies always include close relationship with people that are coming out of the culture. So anyway, you can use this as marketing promo for them. And that's the end of day 15.